This week is going to be all about the usual suspects. Same stuff I tell you every single time, but a little bit more detail and a little bit more focus. This is what happened this week with Why with One Stop. Big thing. Do you know Glide? Have you made friends with Glide? There's been a lot of different energy about it because of how it was bought by Compass. It was originally a car benefit. Who knows when it's going to not become a car benefit? Bottom line is right now, it is the best tool we have for expediting getting files done electronically. It actually walks your clients through question by question for all the disclosures. It lets them flag it so that you and I both get a notification so we can circle back and review those with them before they're presented over to the buyer side. It really is an amazing tool. We can upload any disclosures into it. We can upload the reports you get ahead of time, previous disclosures. Everything's packaged automatically. I've got templates already built in there so that we're all set up to go ahead and send stuff through. The files that get done in Glide during the listings period, honestly, are the most expedited and cleanest files we work on. So the sooner you can get me your listing, the sooner I can do an introduction to your clients. I do have a video that I made for them explaining about Glide, and then we send it in DocuSign for signatures, as well as introducing myself, talking about what they need to disclose. I've got a whole process put together for the listing period, and Glide is a huge piece, it's a really big tool that helps me do my job better. So the sooner you get those listings that I know you're all working on right now, please, the second they're signed, CC me in DocuSign, send them over right away. That gives me enough time to make sure we're getting things over to your clients. Then we can review the disclosures, ask extra questions. Where was the water leak? Was there any mold remediation? Do you have the solar documents? Is Aunt Sally buried in the backyard? Things that'll help you as an agent do better negotiating the transaction because you know the status of the property, you know what's going on because you've already reviewed the disclosures. Again, circling back, why we need to know Glide. If you don't feel comfortable with Glide, or you're like, I can't deal with this, or you have a problem, give me a buzz. We can do a screen share. We can do a networking. I can make you a video, whatever you like. So it's no problem. Super easy. I'm expert-ish. I did consult on the software when it was first created, so I had some familiarity with it for the past 4 or 5 years that it's been working on. Let me know what I can do to help, but let's get you comfortable with Glide because I saw the Seller Shield stuff go out, and unfortunately, it just does not have the functionality yet. I'd love it to. I wish it would. That's why I went and got the WinForm certification. It's not there. And until it's there, it's really a waste of your client's time, our time. It's not going to do what we need it to do, and it's not worth learning. In all honesty, it's pretty basic. As soon as it gets updated, believe me, I'll be one of the first to let you know. I really hope it becomes a piece of software we can use more often, but it's just not there yet. The other usual stuff that's going on that I've talked to you about constantly, I need that property address in the subject line. I'm not the only one who needs it. Lenders need it, escrow needs it, title needs it, other TC on the other side. That really is the only thing that doesn't change during a transaction. So if you can make sure that you're throwing that in somewhere, it really makes a difference for processing for myself and other vendors and people involved in the transaction. Anytime you have any changes during the transaction, we've got to disclose it. So the property sold as is, good, bad, and ugly, as is. So if you suddenly take out a wall or we've done some work, we've got to update the buyer on that, even if it's after disclosures, even whatever. That's why when you do the request for repairs, if your client chooses to do the repairs, we need to provide paid receipts, paid documentation, because that's also an issue about making sure mechanics liens can't get filed on the property. Really big deal. It's a little tiny thing, but it really matters because that is changing the terms of the property. And that's the whole reason the walkthroughs existed, is to verify any changes made during the transaction. Please, please, please stop using seller's choice. Seller's choice creates nightmares for me, creates nightmares for escrow, creates nightmares for everybody. We can't move forward on seller's choice. And did you know there's an NHD company called Seller's Choice and a home warranty company called Seller's Choice? I don't work with them very often. You probably don't either. So they could actually come into a lawsuit for us. And there have been stories of this, because that's why they named them that way, that these things happen. Stop doing it. What you can do is call it who you like with seller's choice with buyer approval. But seller's choice does no favors to anyone. It really just slows down the process way more than I think you realize. It's worth a phone call to the other agent in case they've already gone into escrow, if they have somebody preferred. It's not worth it. Please stop using it. It's just not a good business practice. Are you aware of all the car guides and legal lives that are available? There's a ton of information, and I'm happy to get you the links and send them over to you. Car's got a great training that's constantly going on. I'll definitely, as always, forward things. I've got a bunch to attach to this email for you. There have been recent ones coming out, including about advertising, which they are cracking down on because it's that time. But you just really need to be familiarizing yourself because it lets you be educated to respond to your clients. But it always, at any chance you need, give me a call. I probably know where to find one for you. When you're doing your verbiage for your counters or in any addendums or when you're writing your offers, I've seen this happen recently a couple of times where the counter, suddenly we've said all contingencies be removed by such and such a date. And I know what you're thinking you're saying, because that's meaning, okay, this one we already said at this date, and this one we already said at this date. But it's ambiguous because the two cross each other and it doesn't make sense. So we've said that the PR is due in 10 days, but now you're telling me everything's due in 15 days. So what supersedes? Because that all is going to override the specifics because you're saying all of them. We have separate contingency removals for a reason because they're separate parts of the contract. Make sure you're paying attention to that when you're responding. If you're going to do a blanket one, do a blanket one. If you're going to do specifics, call them out. Those are all in section 3L of the RPA that you want to be paying attention to. Let's see what else is on my notes here for you. Oh, delivery. When does the clock start? So that's another big problem we're having. You've got to put in your info on page 16 of the RPA. And if you get an offer from a buyer's agent that does not have their email or text on that page 16 in the agent block, kick it back. Because they're setting it up that there's no way to prove delivery because we have to say that's the address we sent it to. This new RPA as of December last year, wherever it's electronically delivered, once you hit send on that, it's delivered. And if we don't have an official address for where delivery is, how do we prove it was delivered? Same thing on your side. You got to make sure you have to populate that yourself. You're going to have to drag over a text box. Make sure you're putting that info in. And if you don't get it, kick it back. It really is that big of a deal. And we really are going to start having lawsuits over it. It's a problem and we need to make sure that we're being aware of it. And it's universal. All of my TC groups talk about it. Everybody talks about it. I have a feeling there's going to be a revision to the RPA because of how this is designed. I don't think they thought it through, but for now, this is where we're at. Recording is when you give the keys over. It's actually in the contract. It's in the grid in section 3. With that, what you're going to need to do is make sure you're paying attention to that. It defaults to 6 p.m. on day of recording. Okay. But what if your clients want to get in at noon? Well, if it's not recorded, we're not supposed to be handing over keys because technically your clients don't own it yet till it's recorded. And what if something happens? Funny story. When I started TCing eons ago, my agent was a dual agent and all of a sudden the water pipe broke the day of recording. We didn't know whose insurance was supposed to cover it. We had to backtrack it, backtrack the recording time frame, backtrack everything. It actually happens. That happened. It was over in San Carlos area, the 92115. I know the exact house. I can tell you. And it was a nightmare. It was up in the master bedroom, flooded down to the lower floors. It was nuts. Things like this really do happen. There's a reason I'm a paranoid freak because I've seen it happen. I don't want it to happen to you. So make sure you're paying attention to that when you're setting up your contracts. And if you have questions about your dates, timeframes, when do we start counting? RPA 25 is your bestie. RPA 25 goes through and clarifies everything about that. It clarifies what is a day. The only business day that we have is the deposit because you're dealing with the banks. Otherwise, everything else is a calendar day. But you can't demand that performance till next business day or if it's on a holiday or a weekend. So there's some issues of, and then where do you start counting days? Is this day 1 or are we at day 0? But I want to be day 1. Well, how do we get here? It's all clarified, section RPA 25. I'm going to do a separate video on it, breaking it down for you and also showing the contract. But I want to make sure that you know if there's any questions, wondering about days and stuff, RPA 25. Last thing is I took an advertising class earlier this week. There's a lot of rules and regs they're starting to push again. I know they've always been in existence. There were updates about 2 years ago. The pandemonium hit, so now things are a little delayed. They're coming back to it, and I will make sure you're aware of it. Make sure you've got your broker's number or your DRE number at least on everything. If you send an email to anybody, you post on Facebook, you send a tweet, you do an Instagram, you need to have that DRE number in there. That is the very bottom line. Basic. Your quick emails, you're responding from your phone, your DRE number needs to be on there. Make sure you've got your DRE number. I also took a probate class that I am almost done with my testing and I'll have a certification. I'll make another video about that for you. It's all the things I've already been telling you for forever. All the things about the title, all the things about how vesting should be held, what is an issue, why this is an issue, why we have to make sure we verify who's signing, all of that. So I think that's pretty much the biggest and funnest excitement I have to share with you this week. It's a lot of the usual suspects, just going back to basics. A couple of videos that I owe you is most likely I'm going to do them after my vacation. Yes, I'm going on vacation. I'm very excited. I leave on May 25th and I will be back June 1st. 3 of those days are Memorial Day, so that is a typical holiday. I will do everything to get everything as caught up before I go and then be in catch-up mode when I get back. I really appreciate your patience and flexibility. I also need the chance to go unplug so I can be back and be fresh and be ready to help and assist with everything. So as always, verify with the broker of record. Thank you so much for having me on the team. Any questions? 619-993-7264. Sam Hayes, this is Why with One Stop. This week was all about the usual suspects. Have a great day. Thanks so much for watching.